Hey guys, Metagloid28 back again, here to bring you guys another video. This one's going to be doing part 9 of my 2014 Mets regular season series. And boy oh boy, the trade deadline passed and holy fucking shit, a lot of things happened. Now, I'm going to talk about the Mets obviously in a few moments, but let's just get through all the deals that's happened. I mean, holy shit. The Oakland A's clearly are in it to win it this year. And then the Red Sox are clearly waving the white fucking flag, okay? Now, the Mets didn't do anything. They stood pat at the deadline. They didn't sell away Colon. They didn't sell away Murphy. And they didn't add anybody like Tulo or Cargo or anybody like that. So nothing with the Mets. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Mets fans need to realize this. That's the best thing the Mets could have done right now. Don't trade away Colon. Don't trade away Murphy. And don't try to get anybody right now. Why? Because if you're in terms of selling, the Mets, there's no way I think the Mets should trade Daniel Murphy. Okay, I know he's making like $5.7 million, but he's fucking worth it for that price, and he's gonna make more next year. But just leave him be. You know, he's our second baseman. He's pretty much arguably our best hitter right now the entire year. And then as for Colon, Syndergaard is not even up yet, and it doesn't look like he's gonna come up until at least September. Okay, and then Montero is still obviously trying to figure out his command down there. So right now we need Colon to stay in this rotation along with Wheeler and Nice and G and DeGrom, you know, and G's struggling too, so Colon needs to stay the anchor of this rotation, okay? He's pitched really well this year. So I agreed with the Mets not doing anything at the trade deadline. But as for the other deals around the league, I mean, the A's obviously acquiring John Lester and Johnny Gomes from the Red Sox for Yoenis Cespedes. That was the blockbuster. I was like, what the fuck? Wow. I think the A's and the Red Sox, this is going to work out for both of them, okay? Red Sox more long-term, A's short-term, obviously. The A's now have arguably the best rotation in baseball. The Red Sox, smart move by them because they were not going to have a contract extension signed by Lester this year, obviously, and they know that they have a chance to sign Lester back next year anyway. And on top of that, they add Yoenis Cespedes as an upgrade over Johnny Gomes. That was beautiful by the Red Sox. And then they traded away John Lackey to the Cardinals for Alan Craig and Joe Kelly. I mean, to me, that's even a better deal. John Lackey's not John Lester. You know what I'm saying? He's not as good. And then they got back Alan Craig and Joe Kelly. Holy shit, that was great by them. And then the Tigers, obviously, that was the biggest one, acquiring David Price in the 3-team deal with Seattle and Tampa Bay. Austin Jackson gets sent to Seattle, and then Nick Franklin and Drew Smiley get sent to Tampa Bay. I honestly thought the Rays could have gotten a lot more for David Price. That was a little shocking. So, but hey, the Tigers is clearly looking like a Tigers-A's ALCS this year. That's what's probably going to happen. And then John Lester is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and he might re-sign with the Red Sox. He might sign with the Yankees. Who knows what's going to happen with that? Other moves that pertain maybe towards the Mets is in the NL East. The Marlins and Nationals and Braves all made moves. Not huge moves like the ones I just mentioned, but the Nationals acquired Asdrubal Cabrera from the Indians for shortstop prospect Zach Walters. The Braves acquired Emilio Bonifacio and James Russell from the Cubs. And then the Marlins acquired Jared Cozart from the Astros, pitcher, for Jake Marisnick and a few other prospects in that deal. I don't remember the deal. So, you know, a couple deals here and there. The Yankees acquiring Martin Prado and then also Steven Drew from the Red Sox. So, yeah, there's a lot of deals. This was probably the hottest trade deadline in recent memory. So, it's a little, as a Met fan, does it make us jealous that they didn't make any moves? Of course it does, you know. But right now, we got to be realistic. The Mets are not ready to contend right now, okay? There is a shot that the Mets have of making a run maybe towards the end of August into September, and they're probably 3-4 games out. But I don't really see the Mets winning the second wild card or even the division this year at all. Let's just be real here. The Mets are setting up for a fantastic 2015 season. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain how there's another way the Mets can do this. Obviously, in past videos, I've talked about Troy Tulowitzki possibly getting traded to the Mets, and they would have to send a huge package for him. Even crazier would be to trade for Troy Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez and send a mega deal to them. That's going to require a lot of thinking on Sandy Alderson's front. But here's my thing. It all comes down to the money, because you know the Mets have the assets to trade for guys. We all know this. But at the end of the day, with the Mets, it comes down to the money. Now, the way the Mets have to construct next year is thinking this way. You know Chris Young's contract is coming off the books. That's $7.25 million right off the books. They're not going to re-sign him. He's ass. Now, your payroll right now stands at $86 million. I have the stats right here on my phone. Give me 1 second. The Mets right now is an $86 million payroll. Okay? In order for this to work, they have to trade Bartolo Colon in the offseason, okay? He's due $11 million next year. And I know there's going to be teams that are going to call for him. You know, teams like the Kansas City Royals, possibly the Baltimore Orioles. Who else can use a veteran guy like that? Possibly even, well, I was going to say the Boston Red Sox, but probably not. Maybe a team that's in it to win it more next year, that's ready. Possibly even the Detroit Tigers can try to look at him after they're going to probably have to lock up David Price and let go of Scherzer. They're going to need that other anchor in the rotation. Maybe the Tigers go after Colon? Something like that, you know? But what I think the Mets have a choice of is either you're shedding the entire contract and getting like hardly anything in return, like a really low-level prospect, or shipping him off for a better prospect but eating some of that contract. At this point, the Mets are looking at option one, and that's just dumping Colon for his contract and getting a really, like, nobody prospect, okay? And I think that's the best route the Mets can go. Why? Because that's going to set them up to add in those two key guys in that lineup that they need to acquire for shortstop and left field, okay? We're not going to stop talking about this until it happens, okay? I'm just letting you guys know right now. Every video I make is going to talk about the Mets shortstop and left field situation until they get that settled. And whether that's now in August or in September or fucking November in the offseason, I'm telling you, we're not going to shut up until they do it, okay? And you know they're going to do it. Whether that's big splashy moves or little moves, okay? They're going to do it some way or another. But we can all dream for a second and even be realistic as well. The Mets have a shot to do this, but they have to start with shedding money, okay, for the right guys. Colon's not here to stay, obviously. He's fucking 41 years old. And he's making $11 million next year. Ship him off to a team that needs him, that can eat the entire contract, and we'll take, like, nothing back. Who cares, okay? We have enough prospects. We shed the payroll will then shed by $18.25 million to start next year. So from 86 minus 11, 75. 75 minus 7.25, you're looking at $67.75 million that the Mets are going to start off with their payroll for next year. Now it's time to spend. The first thing they should do after that, go and call Colorado. And no, we're not trading for Troy Tulowitzki. We're going to trade for Carlos Gonzalez because that is, from the reports I'm hearing online from Ken Rosenthal and Joel Sherman of the New York Post, it seems like the Mets are more inclined to trade for Carlos Gonzalez than Troy Tulowitzki. Why? Here's why. Troy Tulowitzki is going to acquire a top-level prospect that we have to start the deal, and that's between Zach Wheeler or Noah Syndergaard. And that's not counting the other pitchers we're going to have to send in that deal, either Dylan G or Montero, okay? Along with other prospects like Nimmo, Plawecki, Flores. It's going to take a lot. Why don't the Mets just do this? If it comes down to money and the Mets just shed the $18.25 million I just said in Colon and Chris Young, then why don't the Mets just do this? If it's all come down to money and the Mets are finally giving into the idea that they're going to add another $20 million player like a Troy Tulowitzki, then why not get Troy Tulowitzki? And hear me out here. If the Mets have the money to spend on a shortstop that can cost them like $20 million, then why not get the biggest fish of them all in the free agent market next year, and that's Hanley Ramirez. You know why I would do this? Because, yeah, you're going to have to give up the money, but you're not going to have to give up the prospects. You get to keep the prospects. All that pitching you get to keep, okay? At least the right guys you get to keep. While as Troy Tulowitzki, you would have to pay him his $20 million per for the next couple of years and trade prospects. Why do that when you can just sign Hanley Ramirez? Yeah, he's not Troy Tulowitzki, but he's damn fucking good. He's probably the second best shortstop in the National League, and you only have to give him the money. You don't have to give a prospect to him because he's a free agent. Sign him. I know it's going to be a little hard to outbid the Dodgers, but if the Mets can pull this off and give him the $22 to $24 million per year and give him a longer contract, just take the risk. Give him the longer contract, the longer years, 6-7 years, as opposed to the Dodgers who are probably just going to give him 5 years. I don't see why they just can't do that. And the trade that they should pull is for Carlos Gonzalez. Okay, I've been saying this forever. I just feel Carlos Gonzalez fits this team perfectly. Okay, he's that cleanup guy the Mets have been looking for since like Carlos Beltran and Delgado have left this team. Okay, he's very similar to Carlos Beltran, except that his prime is never going to reach the prime that Beltran was in. So just think of him like this. He is like Carlos Beltran, but just a little bit worse. But he's still a great player. I mean, he's obviously an all-star. I understand that he plays in Colorado and the splits are pretty drastic. But the Mets have really no choice right now. they had to make a deal to signal to the fans that they're ready to win in 2015. So let's talk about the package now. I've come up with so many different packages in the past, but this is the package I've been hearing lately that the Mets are floating names around there. Besides Syndergaard, because he's in Troy Tulowitzki talks. But for Cargo, I'm hearing Dylan G, I'm hearing Montero, I'm hearing Nimmo, I'm hearing Plawecki. So make the deal happen. The Mets send 5 guys, okay? Now, if the Mets are not sending Syndergaard for Cargo, then what they're going to have to do is, instead of making a shorter package in terms of the players involved and having them be higher level prospects, why not make it a bigger deal in terms of the players involved, but just being lower level prospects or lower level guys? By that I mean, instead of sending 4 great guys, why not send 5 or 6 pretty good guys? You know what I'm saying? So instead of sending Syndergaard and G, why not send the package revolving around Rafael, Montero, Dylan G, those are your pitchers in the deal, and then sending Brandon Nimmo as the outfield prospect, Kevin Plawecki as the catching prospect, and then Wilmer Flores. That's your deal for Carlos Gonzalez. That might even be too much for Carlos Gonzalez, but that's what you're going to send for Carlos Gonzalez, and you're only going to have to pay him $16 million next year, which is basically going to be offset by the $18.25 million that we just shed for Colon and Chris Young. So basically, his contract is going to replace Colon and Chris Young. So think of it like this. Carlos Gonzalez will be replacing Bartolo Colon and Chris Young on the roster. Just think of that in terms of money. Okay, and you still got $2 million left out of that deal to spend, okay? And then their payroll will bounce up. Let me do the math. Their payroll will bounce up after that deal to $78.75 million only, okay? Obviously, this is before arbitration raises, but I'm just saying. Now, you give Hanley Ramirez that big deal. I would give Hanley Ramirez a 6-year, $130 million deal. I think that would get it done to get him away from LA and come to New York. But this deal, the problem with this deal is that it's going to have to happen after Cargo gets traded to the Mets. Because Hanley's not going to want to come to the Mets if, yeah, they get Harvey back, yeah, they get Parnell back, yeah, they keep Syndergaard, yeah, they have Wheeler, yeah, they have DeGrom, yeah, they have Neese, they have Laguerres, they have Darnell, they have Duda now, they have Wright, they have Murphy, Granderson. I understand that, but he's going to be looking at this and he's going to be like, well, they don't have another guy that I want. If you bring Carlos Gonzalez in, it shows to Hanley that they're more serious of winning now and into the future, and Hanley's going to want to invest in that future. So they're going to have to make the Cargo move. Actually, they're going to have to make the Colon move first, obviously. Chris Young is going to happen by itself. Once the year's over, he's gone, okay? So that's obvious. They're going to have to trade Colon. It's going to have to be in this order. Chris Young gets released, obviously. Well, not released, but his contract's up. Colon's going to have to get traded to shed the contract. Then they're gonna have to trade for Carlos Gonzalez, and then sign a guy like Hanley Ramirez. 6 years, $130 million, which will be $22 million per year. And then the payroll is obviously gonna bounce up tremendously. It's gonna then be at $100 million, $103.25 million. Sorry, that's what their payroll is gonna bounce up to. I don't think the Mets should be done then at that point. They have another need in the bullpen. Okay, I know Parnell's coming back. They have Mejia. They got Familia. They got Black. They got Edgin, and, I understand that. But why not sign a closer? Parnell, who knows what Parnell's going to be when he comes back from that injury? Who knows if Mejia is really the full-time closer for this team in the future? I don't really think so, okay? I think the Mets should go out and get Huson Street. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. I think they should sign Huson Street. I know this guy's never pitched on the East Coast. He's pitched on the West Coast all his life with the A's, the Rockies, the Padres, and the Angels now. So it's going to take a lot to get him over here. But can you imagine if you're Huson Street and you look at this team and you're like, wow, they just got Carlos Gonzalez. They just signed Hanley Ramirez. 2 guys that, by the way, play on the West Coast and decided to come here on the East Coast, especially Carlos Gonzalez, who's only known the West Coast in his life as well. I'm going to jump ship too, and I'm going to go to New York. Why not just do that? You know what I'm saying? So if I'm the Mets, I do that. So the deal I would give Huson Street, if I were the Mets, would be possibly, to lure him out of LA, obviously, would be a 3-year, $27 million deal. Obviously $9 million per. So then, you have Carlos Gonzalez, okay? You get Hanley Ramirez, and you bring over Huson Street. And then the payroll would bounce up. After all those deals, it would bounce up to $109.75 million deals. $109.75 million for the payroll. That's before arbitration. Now, the guys that are expecting arbitration raises are guys like, obviously, Daniel Murphy's the number 1 on that list. Lucas Duda, after the year he's had, obviously. Juan Laguerres, Travis d'Arnaud, Zach Wheeler. Who else? It would have been Dylan G, but he's not on the team if we trade him, obviously. Jerez Familia, guys like that, Henry Mejia. So, who else? I'm trying to think of who else. Jacob deGrom, I guess. So, after all that, we'll estimate the arbitration raises to be around $12 million, okay? Let's just say. So, basically, the finishing payroll for the Mets, if they were to do all these moves, would be $122 million. Now, is that crazy for the Mets? It really isn't. But you know what? Let's be realistic here. That's what it's going to have to take for the Mets to be a perennial contender beginning in 2015. They have to go out and make the big splash trade for a guy like Carlos Gonzalez. If we want to dream bigger, even Stanton, Giancarlo Stanton, but that's not going to happen. Let's just be real. But we have to go out and do those moves. You know, we missed out last year, this past offseason, on signing a guy like Nelson Cruz, and look what he's done in Baltimore. You know, I'm happy we missed out on Steven Drew because he's doing horrible this year. But you get the idea. If for some reason the Mets can't pull these moves that I made, okay, that I brought to you guys here, for Carlos Gonzalez, Hanley, Ramirez, Huson Street, then you know what? Then trade for Cargo. I think trading for Cargo's got to happen. Okay, I know it's got to happen. Why? Because he's that thumper in the middle of the lineup, and he's realistic enough to come here to New York. But if it's not Hanley Ramirez, then it could be another guy, a shortstop that can get signed here easily. A guy like J.J. Hardy, Jed Lowry, Asdrubal Cabrera, all these guys can get signed here. It doesn't have to be Hanley Ramirez. I'm just saying I would love it to be Hanley Ramirez. You know, that would be great. It shows the Mets fans that they're willing to spend for another $20 million guy who's really great. You know, he gets hurt. Don't get me wrong. Hanley Ramirez gets hurt, but he doesn't get hurt like Troy Tulowitzki, and he's not going to cost us prospects like Troy Tulowitzki is. You know what I'm saying? So, and on top of that, if we trade for Troy Tulowitzki, you can forget about Carlos Gonzalez. We're not going to trade for both. So it kind of like gives the possibility of getting Carlos Gonzalez. It throws it right out the window if we get Troy Tulowitzki. We would have to settle for another outfielder like Michael Morse, Melky Cabrera, Michael Kadari, like I mentioned in my last video. So, but I like this route better. But I want to ask you guys in this video, the point of this video is we have options. But I want to ask you, the viewers, what is a better option for the Mets in your opinion, okay? Is it option 1 that I mentioned in this video, which was to trade away Bartolo Colon to start the process, trade for Cargo, and sign a shortstop like Hanley Ramirez, J.J. Hardy, or Jed Lowry, and then sign closer Huson Street, something like that, right? Or and then keep the pitching, okay? Harvey, Wheeler, Syndergaard, Neese, deGrom, that's your rotation. Or do we go on the other route and trade for Troy Tulowitzki, pay him all that money, all right? After trading Colon, right? We would have to send pitching prospects in that deal like Noah Syndergaard and then Dylan G, obviously. And then signing a left fielder like a Melky Cabrera or a Michael Morris or a Michael Kadire. You guys decide. What do you think is the better option? I would go with option 1 because at the end of the day, pitching wins in baseball, and the Mets are going to have that. But if they're going to get Troy Tulowitzki, they're going to have to give up the pitching they don't want to give up. They're going to have to give up Zach Wheeler or Noah Syndergaard to start the deal. Where, as opposed to for Carlos Gonzalez, if they trade for him, they're not going to have to get rid of either one of those guys. I can guarantee you that right now. They can send Montero and G in that deal, and they'll be fine with that. Obviously, with the other pieces, and then they would just spend money on the shortstop. You know, that's where they would put the money in. Spend the money on the shortstop. It's extremely unfortunate, in my opinion, that the Mets would take this long to realize that they finally have to open their pocketbook in 2015, or their checkbook, sorry, their checkbooks. And in 2015 and sign a $20 million plus player when they could have easily done that last year with Robinson Cano. So it does kind of hurt me seeing that, the fact that if they're going to go spend $20 million on a guy like Hanley Ramirez, why didn't they just do that last year with Robinson Cano? I understand that. But the problem is Robinson Cano is not a shortstop. We need a shortstop, you know? So it wasn't going to work anyway. It would have been great for PR. Again, don't get me wrong, the Yankees would have hated the shit out of them. The Mets, that would have been glorious for the Mets. But, you know, it can't happen. So, what's the next best thing? Get Hanley Ramirez. You know, just sign the guy. Your payroll's going to have to go north of $100 million eventually, especially if you're in New York. This is the New York market. So, the Mets finally have to get this done in 2015. Because if they don't get this done in 2015, I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I honestly don't know how the fans are going to react to this. If the Mets don't make any moves, I understand the Mets didn't make crazy moves this year. Okay? I understand that. I know they got Granderson, they got Colon, and Chris Young was a disaster. But, fine. 2014, when Harvey went down, the Mets knew right there off the bat that, okay, we're probably not going to contend this year. But 2015, you got Zach Wheeler in his 3rd year now. You would have Matt Harvey coming back from Tommy John surgery, so his arm's going to be stronger. You're going to have Noah Syndergaard up here finally. You're going to have Montero up here. You're going to have DeGrom in his second year. You got G. You got Cologne. You know, you got the pitching, and you got Hefner coming back. Don't forget about Jeremy Hefner. You know? And then you got the contract of Chris Young off the books. If you can trade Cologne and get rid of his contract, you can trade for an outfielder like Cargo. You can sign a shortstop. You can sign a closer. Come on, man. You got Parnell coming back. This team needs to win in 2015 and beyond. They have to. Because if not, they're fucked for years, okay? All this rebuilding for 4 years will go to waste. All these trades Sandy Alderson made for Zach Wheeler, sending Beltran, for sending K-Rod away, trading R.A. Dickey away for Syndergaard and Darnell is all going to go to waste if they don't set it up for 2015 where they spend the money now. They did the trades. Now they got to just do one more trade and then spend the money. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think about this trade deadline in general? And what do you guys think is going to happen in the next coming weeks as we approach the dog days of summer? Is this going to be the first summer in a long time that the Mets are finally going to be relevant? Right now they stand at 52 and 56. 7 games out of first place in the NL East. I think about 6 games out in the wild card. So they're hanging in there by a thread. They're hanging in there, but they're playing a lot better at home, which is a great sign. Darnell is coming around. Duda is fucking. That was oh my god! I can't even explain how great Duda has been this year. 19 home runs, 60 RBIs. He's hitting around 260. That's exactly what the Mets were dreaming for from Duda, and that's exactly what's going on right now. So Lucas Duda looks like he's going to be the future first baseman for the Mets for years to come. So what do you guys think about that? Do you guys think the Mets have a shot at running away with this? I mean, obviously, remember, there's still another deadline coming in August 31st, and that's the waiver deadline. So obviously, there's possible moves that can happen that can help the Mets at least just for this year. So that's it for me. I'm gonna come out with another video, obviously in a couple weeks or probably even before that. It's basically just gonna be an update on what's going on with the Mets by then, because obviously in baseball anything can change in 1 or 2 weeks. The Mets can go on a hot streak and be over 500 finally, or they can go on a downward spiral and then the season can be lost for them. So that next video I'm gonna make is probably gonna be crucial. In terms of where the Mets are going to stand at that time in the dog days of summer in August, the middle of August. So we'll see what happens with that, guys. But please, guys, keep subscribing to my channel. Comment down below. I will respond to you as quick as I can. Let's have a fucking discussion. What do you guys think the Mets should do to set up for 2015 as they are looking to try to at least stay relevant for the rest of 2014 and then setting up for a fantastic 2015 offseason that we are expecting to be crazy. Talks between New York and Colorado have got to reach an all-time high in once November comes, and trying to sign stars away from other teams like Street from the Angels and Ramirez from the Dodgers, or other guys like Lowry from the A's. We'll see what happens. But I'm gonna call it for here, guys. This has been Metalcaloid28. You guys enjoy the rest of your fucking day. The Mets will now be playing the Giants 4-game series at Citi Field. We'll see what happens with that. But I'm going to call it for here, guys. This is Metalcaloid28, and I'm out. You guys have a great day.